A feel-good pod, meat and potatoes, NFL, NBA, and digital world talk.
And no days off.
Yeah, this is entertaining. It's not going to count, but heck, keep it rolling.
And with the Benny Hill music playing in the background, this game is over, thankfully.
And we're back. The Marchand and Ourand Sports Media Podcast. I'm Andrew Marchand, sports media columnist for the New York Post. He's John Ourand, the media reporter for the Sports Business Journal. John, lot to talk about. NFL, Black Friday, NBA in-season ratings, and what's next with the NBA deal. Netflix, APPLE-MLS, Sports Illustrated, Charissa Thompson, and a MandO Mailbag.
MandO Mailbag. Glad to see this make a return to the pod. But let's get started. Who's up? Who's down?
Who's up?
Who's down?
Andrew, get us started on this one.
My who's up: Jim Nantz, Tony Romo, Chris Collinsworth, Kevin Burkhardt, and Greg Olsen. Why? Because they're all off. And good for them. I mean, to make millions and millions of dollars to call NFL games and then to get days off, that's a good deal. I mean, this past week, Collinsworth, he did Thanksgiving, then had Sunday off. Jason Garrett's in for him. Nantz and Romo, they did a double duty. A lot of strain here. They did 3 games in 8 days. That's incredible. I mean, people do baseball every single day in different cities all over the place in the NBA, and there's all kinds of people with crazy schedules, but 3 games in 8 days for Jim Nantz and Tony Romo. And then Burkhardt and Olsen, they did the Thanksgiving Day game off Sunday, bad slate. You know, we have the Al Michaels rule now. Bad slate this past Sunday for Burkhardt and Olsen. This upcoming Sunday, told the excuse, besides the fact the Super Bowl year, bad slate for CBS. So Nantz and Romo off. Listen, Nantz and Burkhardt, they have other jobs. They do golf, they do baseball. Nantz did do basketball. Burkhardt has done some hoops in terms of college studio. So the fact that they work a full year, get a week off, okay, maybe. The other guys, I mean, they're working half the year, making all of them making 8 figures, 10 million or more. With Romo at the top there, 18 million all in each year. So getting a day off. I mean, if one person's off, then the other one could work. I mean, that's how I would work it. You know, sometimes people need days off for different reasons. But listen, all power to them. Like, I don't begrudge them. If they can get these games off, it's a lot of games. I don't want these guys to be tired. And let's face it, I think what we have here is load management has hit sports broadcasting. You don't know. I mean, we all tune in for these guys, and now you don't know if they're going to be there. It's like the same problem as the NBA. You don't know, are you going to get these guys? Because they might need a day off because we got to rest them so they're ready each week.
Who's down, Andrew? It has to be Mike Tirico. He needs a better agent. He's working all the way through.
I think Tirico loves it. Tirico, I'll give him credit. He used to, when Al Michaels was still doing NBC and he was kind of in that on-deck circle, he used to do some Westwood One radio. He's doing the Olympics, and then, you know, which is old school. That's how Marv Albert used to do it and all of them. But Tirico, he likes to work. But yeah, I mean, he doesn't have that sweet deal that some of these other guys have with these days off.
My who's up is Sean McManus. He is the chairman of CBS Sports. And on Tuesday of this week, what seems like the entire sports business attended a luncheon at Cipriani in New York City to benefit the March of Dimes. And Sean McManus has chaired that lunch for the last quarter century. Well, McManus is retiring as chairman of CBS Sports in the spring, story that you broke back in September, which pissed me off because I wanted to break that story, Andrew, but that's neither here nor there. Anyway, over the last 25 years or so, Sean has turned this event into one of the hottest tickets in the business. And I'm not overstating things. I've seen people who can get Super Bowl tickets at the drop of a hat beg to get tickets to get into this room for this lunch.
Name names.
Well, nobody this year. I was trying to get a ticket this year, but the pod came first.
All right, fine.
When McManus started as chair of this event, it raised less than $150,000. And on Tuesday, it's going to pull in more than $1 million. David Burson, he's going to replace McManus next year, but I wanted to give a nod to Sean for using his position at CBS Sports to turn this event into such a big deal.
Yeah, that's a great cause, and that is great to hear, and that's a tremendous who's up. All right, my who's down, Desmond Howard. of ESPN's College Game Day. On Saturday, they were at Michigan, which has been the center of college football because of the sign stealing caper and shenanigans, which, there's a lot of opinions on. ESPN's college football insider, Pete Thamel, who's on game day, has been all over it along with other reporters, but one of the reporters reporting heavily on it, which, as Reese Davis noted in this clip about the play, the fringe element was sending messages to Thamel. So ESPN smartly took it seriously. Desmond Howard did not, though.
So we've been doing this 12, 13 weeks. Pete's always been in the crowd giving his reports. I'm like, what the hell is Pete in the stadium for?
I don't know.
That kind of just threw me all off. Like, put your big boy pants on, do it in the crowd like you usually do it.
Hey, come on, man.
I was surprised by that.
Yeah,
I thought he would be out here.
Look, he's gotten from the lunatic fringe some threats, and we're just taking care of it. That's
security, we'd be okay. Yeah. These guys are nice out here. These are nice fans. They're not going to do anything.
It only takes one. That's all.
Yeah, no, we'd be okay. With big boy pants on.
And here's the problem with what Desmond had to say. I mean, you got to take threats seriously, unfortunately. Yes, it seems like they mostly are not acted on. But if you're ESPN and Pete Thamel is getting threats, you can't put him in the crowd with Michigan. And I know Desmond Howard went to Michigan, but he's got to be a little bit more self-aware. And if you want to joke about that, maybe off air, but on air, make your teammate look bad, that's just not good. And Desmond Howard should have known better. He's wrong, first off, because the reasoning for why ESPN did it makes perfect sense. And secondly, even if you felt like, oh, he should be out there, who cares about threats? You should say it to him off the air and not make your teammate look bad. So my who's down is Desmond Howard.
My who's down, Andrew, is the Arena Group. That's the group that runs Sports Illustrated. And this is, I think, the easiest who's down in the history of the Marchand and Ourand Sports Media podcast. I usually like to highlight a person instead of a company or a group in the who's up and who's down. But Arena Group, they keep putting out statements attributed only to unnamed spokespeople. So it's the entire group that should be taken to task on this. We're going to talk about the scandal later on. It's a topic in the pod. Basically, Sports Illustrated used AI stories and AI generated reporters without alerting readers to it. But for my who's down, I just wanted to focus on one aspect of this story, which was reported by a publication called Futurism. Futurism wrote, quote, "After we reached out with questions to the magazine's publisher, the Arena Group, all the AI-generated authors disappeared from Sports Illustrated's site without explanation. Our questions received no response." Andrew, we know that's not how a reputable publisher acts.
No doubt about it. Maybe AI wrote the statement.
They could have.
All right, we will get to that when we get further into the topics, but let's start with topic number one. We said a feel-good pod, meat and potatoes. So there's no more meat and potatoes topic in sports media. The number one topic is NFL. And let's start here. First off, Thanksgiving ratings, unbelievable, from Fox to CBS, NBC, all of them. Black Friday ratings are coming out a little bit later in the week. So as we do the pod, we don't have the numbers yet. But Amazon's Black Friday, that was the big story. Last week we had Jay Marine on. Go back and listen. He's the head of Amazon Global Sports. And we had him talking about what they're doing with Black Friday, what they're doing with the NFL, their plans in terms of their hopes for the NBA, and a lot of other topics. So you should go back and listen to that. Black Friday, I will say, I think that's success. We haven't seen the numbers yet, but I will say the idea of the QR codes and the deals, I feel like it adds up. What's your take?
I actually attended the game. I drove up from DC with my son and took it in. And judging by the people from Amazon who are in attendance, Andy Jassy, the CEO of Amazon, was there. Mike Hopkins, who runs all of Prime Video, was there. Jay Marine was there. Marie Donahue was there. Everybody sort of associated with Amazon. This is a big deal to a $3 trillion company. And so, what defines success to me, just the fact that they were lending all of that support to this event means that it's coming back next year and the next year and the next year. And I'm curious to see what the numbers are this year, but I can bet you that next year that it's going to even grow beyond that, and in the following year as well. Amazon is, it appears to be really committed to this, regardless of what the numbers come out. It was something that was unique, and it dominated the sports talk for that Friday, which the NFL has never quite done before, and not only because of the Fail Mary. What are you calling that? The Fail Mary? The
some people call it the Hell Mary.
Hell Mary.
I thought it was a pretty good one. Yeah, the Jets. I did text somebody from Amazon during it. And other people I think tweeted this, so I can't say I'm the only one who had this thought. But can you return the Jets on Black Friday, because they didn't really show up? Overall, though, I think success. Like, I think it works. I think I can see this becoming a thing. They had a pretty good matchup. Obviously, hurt with Aaron Rodgers out. But overall, the NFL keeps dominating. And we're still a ways away. We're just starting this new deal. But I kind of look at that opt-out in 7 years, and I'm thinking, first you're like, no, they got so much money. I don't know. Things trend this way where other sports are going, and the NFL keeps dominating and growing more. I don't know. That opt-out, again, we're way early on this. But I just think that it's just incredible. And I think they're just adding another notch. And it's good to see that the NFL and Amazon will infiltrate themselves into people's lives even more, because they haven't done so thus far that much.
Andrew, we keep saying, and you just said that the NFL is dominating, and let's just think about that for a second. The games on Thanksgiving were not competitive games. The Packers and the Lions. The Packers were up big. I think the Lions made it close at the end, but it wasn't really a competitive game. The Cowboys crushed the Commanders, and then the 49ers and Seahawks. Again, not a competitive game, but if you look at the numbers of people that sat and watched all of these non-competitive games on that Thursday, it really takes your breath away. There's nothing else on TV that delivers those numbers, and there's nothing even close in terms of other sports that will deliver those numbers outside of the odd playoff game here or there. I mean, these are regular season games on Thanksgiving. The numbers, really, if you sit down and take a look at them, they're it's beyond dominating. It's like its own sort of media ecosystem.
All right, let's move on to topic 2, because this is another league that has its own ecosystem, but a little bit different. Let's start. I think I'd like to do good news, bad news. All right, and let's start with the good news, because we are a feel-good, positive podcast, as always. You're known for that. The in-season NBA tournament ratings have been really good. Why do you think that's been the case?
I think that the NBA, TNT, and ESPN have been really effective in demonstrating to casual fans and to hardcore fans that these games, even though they're just regular season games, but they're different. I think the idea of doing these courts, the different style courts, which some people hate. I've seen some people like. I do know when I've been in a bar and I've watched it, it jumps out of the TV screen at you as something that's just completely different. And we got through the round robin stage of the in-season tournament, and people are slowly starting to figure out what's happening with these. I think the matchups have been very good, and the stars have come out. The Lakers have had a rather pedestrian start to the season. They're undefeated so far in the in-season tournament. This is something that LeBron James apparently covets and wants to do well in. And so you have player buy-in, you have fan buy-in, and you have the networks and the leagues that have been really effective in making this feel different and unique from regular season games.
Yeah, the courts are very smart, especially for television, because if you want to make this something that has history to it, when you look back at highlights, that they look different than a regular game, even a playoff game, a regular season game. I think that's really smart. It's an alternative look, so it gives you a different feel. And I also think like one of the beauties of baseball, for example, is that you have different stadiums. So Camden Yards is different from Fenway Park, is different from Target Field. And that's something special about baseball. Now you still can't do that as much with basketball, but I think that is a very smart thing.
Can I throw in one
Yep.
more thing on that too? Is we just got through the round robin stage, as I said. Wait until it's single elimination, and they get closer to the in-season championship and the in-season semis, which are going to be held in Las Vegas. I think then you're really going to see some of these numbers pop. I think that you're going to see these viewership numbers really increase.
And then ESPN and TNT, they're going to team up with their studio shows, doing kind of a little switcheroos. And Doc Rivers going to work for TNT for a game. Reggie Miller's going to come over and work with ESPN for a game. Yeah, it's a little, that's something. I'm not sure if that's gonna, it depends how it sounds, quite honestly. But they're trying to make it as big and different as possible and to buy it. All right, let's get into the rights deal, because that's gonna, I don't think those are gonna be, if anything's done, it's not gonna be till the first quarter of next year. I think at this stage, as is usually the case, places are far apart, even if a deal is expected, because it's only the window between the NBA and Disney and WBD Sports, and then they can really open it up. And they're definitely going to add a third player. Is it Amazon? Is it NBC? Is it Apple? Do they add 2 extra players? Or maybe somebody's out. But that's still to be seen. We talked about Netflix. You had the report that they have some interest in the in-season tournament. I'm not going to say they're not going to get involved. I just find it doubtful. And I just wonder where the NBA is getting their leverage. I think they're going to be fine, but like there was a report years ago about them tripling what they're getting. I don't think they are. I mean, maybe again, could be proven wrong, but I think with these companies tightening their budgets a little bit, the nature of the NBA as compared to the NFL in terms of, the only really event coverage you have is the playoffs, and, they're trying to make the in-season tournament that as well. But the NFL's events every week, even if the games aren't as good, it's just the way the presentation of it, it's only 3 hours and etc. And every game has that much more importance. So I do think, like, you don't know about Apple, but I'd also be a little hesitant about Apple. If I'm the NBA, for a variety of reasons. Before I go further, what do you think?
So where does the NBA get the leverage? I think you just went through where their leverage is. There are more bidders right now than there are packages that are available, and the NBA has their playoffs.
Wait, let me interrupt you for a second. So when you look at the ESPN package, who do you think is vying also for that ESPN package?
I don't know yet. So
hold on a second. I'm gonna go down, okay? Because you didn't give me anybody.
Oh! I see where you're going on this. I was going to take it in a different route. ESPN wants a big package, which includes the NBA Finals and a considerable amount of the playoffs. Turner wants a big package that includes a considerable amount of the playoffs, pretty much what they already have, the All-Star game and some of the other tentpole programming. Amazon wants a considerable package, which Jay Marine last week, as the Big Get said, includes a considerable amount of the playoffs. You have 3 really big media companies, Warner Brothers Discovery, Disney, and Amazon, that are vying for a limited piece of real estate in the NBA playoffs. That's, if you're the NBA, that's great. I mean, we've been talking about the overall market and how depressed that overall market is. Let's say Turner says it's too rich for our bloods, we're out, and you only have Amazon and ESPN, then all of a sudden the leverage turns. But as long as you have those 3, NBC has been saying that they're in the wings. Google is a potential a possibility out there. Right now, it looks really, really good for the NBA, despite the overall headwinds in the sports media business.
Okay. Well, I think that
you disagree.
Well, no, I think they're going to do well. I've said this forever. They're going to do well.
By the way, I don't think they're going to triple. Which
they're not going to triple.
Yeah.
Will they double? I'm not sure they're going to double. I mean, I guess they're adding a third. They're just not I don't know. I mean, they're trying to create more inventory with the in-season tournament, trying to make those games more important. But like, it's not. Let's say Amazon, for example, or Apple did a Thursday night game. like that's not in the same hemisphere as NFL Thursday Night Football. I mean, the
Not
audience
even close.
is 10 times as much. So you could argue they should get 10 times less amount of money. If you add in the playoffs, and you get some playoff games, those are worth something. But if you're just giving the old NBA TV games to like Amazon or Apple, those aren't worth as much. Those are like the, also rans of the playoff games. So I just think it's a little bit hard. They have a lot, but I guess the point I'm trying to make is Apple's a wild card. It's hard to predict what they do because of their secrecy. There are some things that point to them as being players in the NBA circles, but it also doesn't fit what they really want to do in terms of owning everything. And I also would be a little scared. You're the NBA. I'm not comparing the NBA to MLS, but there is zero buzz about the MLS playoffs on Apple. Zero. Now I know Messi's not involved, and if Messi was involved, maybe there's more buzz, but I get it. There are diehard MLS fans who are listening and watching and are interested, but you cut out ESPN, you cut out the Foxes, and I get it. That wasn't necessarily working either, but it just like the setup of the league might be the issue because the playoffs, it's an American way of doing playoffs, and that's not how it's done basically everywhere else in the world in terms of soccer. But I'd be a little careful about that if I'm the NBA in terms of Apple. I'm not sure that the elixir that they might present themselves as in terms of the future.
Well, there are a couple of Easter eggs that we've gotten over, like when I did the interview with Bill Koenig, who's the top media executive at the NBA. He said that the definition of reach is really starting to change, and so what I take that to mean is that the idea that you reach the most people via broadcast when Amazon Prime has more than 200 million worldwide subscribers, or I'm not quite sure what that number is, but it's massive. It's something that an ABC, Fox, CBS can't actually provide. It can go international. All of the other aspect of the NBA deal, all of their international rights are going to end at the same time. So when you think about a big company like Apple, all of a sudden, if you get a Thursday night package or a Friday night package, and you're able to get all of the worldwide rights, and so you can be anywhere in the world and watch it, like how much would they value that, and how much does that reach differ from sort of what we're used to?
I agree with you, and that does make sense, and that's a very strong point by the NBA, which is I would say the most international of the major sports. I mean, I'm a soccer guy, so let me be clear. Soccer is the most international, but the NBA is, in terms of the four major traditional American sports, NBA is probably the biggest around the world. I'd say followed by baseball and hockey. And then that's where the NFL is kind of trying to catch up in terms of, global appeal, and maybe has room for growth. But so, yeah, that your point is well taken. But they were selling those before. It's not like they weren't being sold previously.
No, but they were selling them country by country to to various aspects, and they have a big business. The NBA has a big business. NBA Africa, of course, everything that they're doing in China as well. So it would take a really big bid by one of these companies to get it. Luckily, these companies have market caps that are well over $1 trillion. All
right, let's hit a couple of others. All right, start with NASCAR, and then we'll get to the NCAA football playoffs.
NASCAR, we've been talking about the NASCAR media deal for months. Is finally here. So NASCAR is re-upping with Fox. They're re-upping with NBC. So the main races are still going to be on broadcast TV in the United States, Fox and NBC. And then they have a mid-season package of races. Going to be, I'm told, 10 races. They're going to split that between Turner and Amazon, and sort of move forward with 4 different media companies. I think what NASCAR really ran into is what we talked about a little bit with the NBA. They hit a market that just where the traditional TV companies are really tightening their purse strings, and so what they expected to happen months ago, they expected this to come at the end of spring, these deals, and it just took a long time, and they had to get Turner involved, they had to get Amazon involved, they had to increase the number of races in the mid-season package, in order to try to get the dollars up to where it makes sense for them. I think at the end of the day, it's a good deal for NASCAR.
And that's significant. Amazon getting involved. We see their growth of sports. And even though people who listen every week to the pod, you're a big believer of like they should start at the Super Bowl. It's actually not how things work in the real world. You start smaller and then you build up. And so they're getting their foot in, developing that relationship, and you could see potentially, if it works, the next deal where Amazon gets a bigger piece of the pie and where things could end up going. Fair?
The opt-out there. I will say there are plenty of examples, Fox being the possibly the most recent one, of companies coming in and getting a big piece of the NFL without sort of having to start small. I know that was
It was 1993.
30 years ago. Well, you keep going back to the 80s on ESPN getting started with the
But
NFL.
it was a different, no, but then
It's a $3 trillion company. They can afford to really make a big investment in the NFL.
they did.
The NFL
They're spending $1 billion a year.
for the worst pack. Hey, let's go.
Ratings are really good.
The ratings have been beyond good. Yeah. Let's go to another rights deal. The NCAA college football playoff. What are you hearing on that?
So I think the bigger issue might be that there's 2 years now where they're going to add playoffs, where there's games that can be bought either by ESPN, Fox, WBD, Amazon. I'm sure the others have talked, but those seem to be the major players. The issue is that nobody really, I don't think, wants to just do like a 2-year deal for these early round games without going into further down the road and get some guarantees about getting either the national championship or the semifinals. And so I think that's why it's going a little bit slower. And I also, we've talked about the market's tight. Like, do people want to pay this big number? Yeah, they all want the national championship. I mean, I'd say ESPN's the favorite. And that's where like the baseball opt-out could come into play, where, in 2 years they can opt out of their MLB deal, and that's $500 million. Now, I would suspect they'd want to stay with MLB, and MLB would want ESPN. However, maybe they renegotiate because you free up some of that money for either the NBA or for college football, which I think they'd prefer probably if they had to, pick one or the other. So I think that's where that stands. You agree?
Could you imagine if you're at Warner Brothers Discovery and you get an early round college football playoff, but it's just a one-off game in an early round, or two one-off games in an early round, and you don't build to anything. They're not going to do these deals unless there's a promise of getting to a semifinal or getting to a championship eventually. So the 2 years is really harmful for that. I would expect, if this deal gets done, it would almost certainly have to be Fox, which is deep in the into college football right now, and ESPN, which of course is deep into the or owns all of the college football playoff.
All right, let's before we get to the MandO Mailbag and we finish things up, let's get into the controversial stories of the last couple of weeks. Sports Illustrated, it was your Who's Down with the Arena Group using AI, apparently, reportedly, according to the Futurist, to write stories. This is something that's going to be a reoccurring theme, as AI gets even, more prolific and can do podcasts like the that was everyone, all broadcasters listening be like, that was that guy's impersonation. Okay, this guy critiques us, but that was my impersonation of an AI doing the Marchand and Ourand sports media podcast.
Can I do an impersonation?
Yeah, go ahead.
Worst package ever.
So, Chris Ripley, Who's Down? AI could do this.
Yeah, my Who's Down is Chris Ripley.
So let's talk about you hit it on the head, but I mean, where do we see this going? It feels like, at least thus far, I think others have done this too. Every time it happens, it seems like a failure so far.
We're all focused on AI and the threat that AI brings to to reporters and the bylines, and this puts it out there. But this is also like a company that's not a traditional publisher, that doesn't have journalism in its blood, that doesn't really understand what goes into reporting and writing. And I think that's why you saw, and with our next topic too, it kind of flows in, why so many reporters, especially Sports Illustrated reporters, if you saw on Threads or you saw on X, really came out and publicly, bashed their parent company over this. It's because the parent company isn't a journalism company. It's a company that's designed to make money. Not that journalism companies don't want to make money, but they don't have journalism at their core.
I agree. And Sports Illustrated, I think for, you're, everyone knows, you're much older than I am, but we grew up on, Sports Illustrated was a place you wanted to end up at. And, it still is. They still have some great writers at SI. So it's a shame because, they get stained because of the company, and what they're doing. And there's still great work done by SI people. And by the way, do we know if Jimmy Train is a real person?
I have actually seen him at an event, so I think he is.
I have seen him, but I'm still not positive Jimmy Train is a real person. I'm gonna need proof of that.
Andrew, can I bore listeners with one quick Sports Illustrated story?
Sure.
I've been a subscriber since 1973. And so if you go to my childhood bedroom, which we talked about in last week, I have every single Sports Illustrated from like 73 through 89 categorized by cover, by sport. And I remember this was back in like the early 80s. All of a sudden, baseball, there was many more baseball covers than NFL. But at some point, like there became more NFL covers than baseball. It's Sports Illustrated's in my blood. I love everything about that brand, and kind of seeing this story come out there. It really it hurts everybody that's about our age that like grew up on them.
Yeah, and by the way, I was born in 74, so you have been subscribing to Sports Illustrated longer than I've been alive.
My older brothers got that. Well, let's go into the next one. We didn't have a chance to talk about it last week because it happened after we taped the podcast, but Charissa Thompson going on a Barstool podcast and essentially saying that on occasion when she wasn't able to get in front of a coach, she kind of made up, not kind of, she said she made up what the coach said. She since came out with a statement that said that she used a poor choice of words. What do you think about that, Andrew?
Yeah, she said it on Part of My Take. And I think, she's trying to be fun and cool because, it's kind of a relaxed setting. But I think first off, you have to understand is no matter what setting you're in, it's broadcast to the whole world. So, so just like saying it in that setting, and then they they put the excerpt basically on the internet, and it went with wildfire. I went back and listened to the whole thing, and actually it was worse because it's not like they set it up like, tell us some crazy story or something that's gonna get everyone upset. She sort of just kind of volunteered it. And so look, I get it, then there's a piling on Twitter, and it feels like everyone's like kind of treating this like, this is the worst thing that's ever happened. And I don't think necessarily that's the case, but the reason the piling on is because it is terrible. Like you can't make things up. The media already does have a bad reputation overall because of our political landscape, and quite honestly, sometimes it's earned. Like, I don't think the media does a good enough job overall in a lot of cases. And it's case by case. There are great reporters at most publications, and then there's some that aren't as great, and there's processes that aren't as good. But you can't make it up like that. That's the thing about it. That, for people who are like, I get it, non-journalists, like, who cares? It's only the NFL. But it's just like, you have to, you have a trust, and like that's all we have. Like all we have, Joel Sherman, New York Post baseball columnist, said this to me years ago. All you have is your reputation, and nobody's perfect, but like Charissa Thompson's reputation now is always going to have that she just makes things up. You see, like now people making jokes all the time on Twitter, and maybe it will fade, but it just hurts her profession. And the reason there was such outrage from other sideline reporters is because they're trying to do their jobs correctly. And there is sometimes a feeling as if like or a perception that their jobs are just like unneeded. CBS years ago got rid of the sideline reporters, and then they brought them back. And so, and here's the other thing about it: if the coach doesn't stop, there's other ways to report things and do your job. Like that to me also is kind of one of the issues with what she said and how she did her job, is that there's other things to notice when you're on the sideline, and that comes to being a reporter and not just a television performer. And I think that's where she lost a lot of people.
Let's talk about fallout from this. Charissa Thompson's no longer a sideline reporter. She's a studio host for Amazon and their Thursday Night Football, and for one of Fox's NFL pregame shows. Does she keep those jobs going into next year?
Yeah. I mean, she's got the right employers. Like if it was ESPN, I think the reaction, I mean, they've kind of changed over the years, but I think they might have reacted differently because they take it more seriously. And I think Charissa Thompson's good on the air. Like, I mean, the job as a host, it's not journalism necessarily. It's sort of, it's being able to move the conversation, being smooth on the air. It's your presentation. And so she does a good job with that stuff. I've thought that for a while. And she's, I heard from some of her colleagues, she's well respected by the people she works with. That said, though, she has the right employers who didn't want to make a change and didn't take, too much issue with it. And it was a long time ago, but like, you just can't do it. And I get it. And she felt free to say it. And it doesn't she hit it. Does that make it better? I don't know. But it's just like to say it. So the other thing is to say it so casually was kind of like not thinking it was that like, oh, I haven't gotten fired yet for saying this. I said it before, which she apparently did with Aaron Andrews on their podcast. To say it so casually too is like kind of a bad sign. That you just sort of like, if you or I said that, again, our jobs are different, but like, it's just credibility wise. And I get it that some people say, oh, not a big deal. Well, it is a big deal because a lot of people think the media makes things up. I mean, that's one of the problems in like the world right now, is that there's no arbiter. Like the media in theory should be the arbiter of the truth. And, especially because of social media, this is something we can talk about longer and maybe one day we will, but there's just not like this definitive what's true and what's not now because of the internet, and we don't need to add it to, and we just owe it to ourselves. Like we know what we do, and to me it's very bad. I can't say it's I can't like be like, it's just sideline reporting. Not to me. I mean, if she can, if we're going to consider people on the sideline and people on the air, you want to trust that what they're telling you, even if it is mundane. I get it. It's mundane and stupid. She wasn't making up the Pentagon Papers or anything that important, but it's still, to me, it's bad.
Yeah. Though my final thing on this is I've been struck at the passion that sideline reporters have talked about this. I was at an event at the University of Maryland where David Aldridge, who used to be an NBA sideline reporter for Turner, I think he did it for a little while for ESPN as well. He got emotional talking in front of the crowd, sort of about what he did and how that admission really hurt him and affected him and sort of demeaned his career. I think we've seen Andrew Kramer come out and really talk so passionately about what's their career work, and that's what has given this story so many legs, is that there's so many well-respected sideline reporters that are not letting this lie, that are coming out. What I'm curious about is to see how long this continues. Will it continue into next season? Because if it does continue into next season at the same sort of vociferousness that there is right now, there is a good possibility that Fox and Amazon might say this isn't worth the trouble.
Yeah, I don't think they will, but we shall see.
All right, let's get into the MandO Mailbag.
You've got mail.
All right, listen, we got a couple of things to hit here. We'll start with John Kitzman, who is a big listener of the program. Every Wednesday morning, he said he listens. He works in Division II sports, and very nice email he sent us. He said this, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but the NCAA recently went to to consumer with D2 national championships. Those broadcasts are now behind a paywall with various pricing, day, entire championship, etc. You both have talked about the trade-off between revenue and reach. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the NCAA taking this approach with D2. Look, we could get specific in the D2, but I mean, when you look at that and understand that, I don't know. To me, it seems like the how much money are they going to make? And, like it depends what their choices were. I think some of those championships have been on, network television before. I think the exposure is probably is worth more than trying to get the shekels from, some of the parents and friends and family that you're going to get if that's the case, that the team's in there. What says you?
Yeah, I would agree, especially when it comes to Division II sports exposure and putting your sport in front of as many people as you can at as low a price point as you can is always better than taking a check. In fact, if you take a look even at the big leagues, the NFL, we talked about earlier how dominant it is. It has, from the Pete Rozelle days, prioritized broadcast television. I mean, there was a time when David Levy ran Turner, they were bidding a lot of money to try to get a package, but the NFL always wanted to stay on broadcast television to prioritize that reach. And we see how that's benefited. That's one of the reasons that the NFL has benefited. I got to imagine the Division II would I'm not suggesting they would be the NFL, but they would certainly would benefit from that as well.
Well, that's why the bundle works. Because, for example, the other day, Peter Body, fine sports writer for the Post, was watching North Carolina Hofstra, which to go to the Elite Eight in men's NCAA soccer. He texted me Hofstra in penalty kicks. And immediately I thought, okay, ESPN Plus, text him back, ESPN Plus, question mark. He said yes. And that's where the bundle kind of works. Because again, I'm getting value from ESPN Plus by them having that. And I don't think they're probably spending a lot for the NCAA men's tournament that they're putting on Plus there. But it's not why someone like me would have it. But if you're a North Carolina soccer fan or a Hofstra soccer fan, you would. But it's that's where I think where you look at the little guy, yeah, it's not going to be worth as much. And it's never been worth that much, right? But I do think there's going to be this rebundling that will happen, and it's important to be in some place that that everyone has, and that's when you get the ESPN direct to consumer if they have all the products, so that you become, for lack of a better term, the Netflix of sports.
Who won? Hofstra?
Nope, North Carolina.
Oh God!
And these guys kept talking too much. Just go take your penalty kick, make it, go back to you don't have to talk before and after, right? It's just I could do without that. All right, question.
All right, item number 2.
All right, our next one comes from Andrew Stolowitz off of Twitter. He says, question for you and Andrew. He's addressing it to you, John, about everyone's favorite topic, diamond sports. Do you think companies' situation with MLB rights would improve if sport had revenue sharing models similar to NFL or NBA, given most of their clubs operate in small markets, aren't high payroll? John, I know what I think. What do you think?
I think, of course, it would have improved a little bit, but there are so many different things at play here. One is that Sinclair got those RSNs. The number 2 bidder was MLB. So MLB really wanted those RSNs, and MLB has been really at the forefront of NBA and NHL and all the leagues that really have these local rights in terms of trying to get control of these rights. They see what everybody else is seeing. There is a big transition that's happening from traditional television to streaming, and the Major League Baseball wants to control those rights as that's happening. And Major League Baseball, as opposed to really every other league, has a big history through Major League Baseball Advanced Media, BAM. They've been at the forefront of streaming technology, of media rights, and moving things forward that way. So I think regardless of that structure, Major League Baseball would be going down this route.
I agree. Now the question is, though, will the big markets really play if it had one way to buy all the teams? Will the Yankees who, already have 21 games on Amazon per year, Amazon Prime Video, and Amazon has an ownership stake in the Yes Network. Would they be as part of a package? I've had somebody very smart in the regional sports business telling me that eventually they'll have to.
Yeah, they'll have to. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know.
Look,
I don't know if they can do it though. They're worth so much more. How can they? I mean, they'd have to get an unequal share, which the person.
Well, the same headwinds that are hitting everybody else, that's going to hit the Yes Network. They're losing They're not this year, probably not in 2 years, but at some point they're facing the same cord cutting and cord shaving that the entire business is. So is NESN. So is the Dodgers. So is Chicago. So at some point, they still have a lot more leverage than, say, the Kansas City Royals or the Milwaukee Brewers. But at some point, they will have to get involved, I would think.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for the Marchand and Ourand Sports Media Podcast. We want to thank AC Wyatt for putting everything together, the master of the board, Chris Mason, who always gives us all those great drops. And if you like the pod, you can subscribe, give us a comment, the 5 stars, all appreciated. And we'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening.
NFL, NBA, the digital world, all that next.
And no days off.
Did that work? Or you think you're too slow?
Was that too slow?
I thought it was going to be too slow. I just meant like you can talk normal with like, all right, let's do it again. It was good, but it was like I think maybe too. It was like very dramatic.
Yeah, this is drudgery, Andrew. Drudgery.